Okay, so we are finally back with y- yet another play and explain. It's 2 a.m. over here and games are a little bit slow, so no better time than now to get back on the content grind. Back with 200 zone as usual. And once again, just starting off with my usual disclaimer that I really do not recommend anybody try to grind these games for money. You basically just pay out most of your winnings in rake. Edges are very small, and if you can beat this game, if you can beat this game, you can beat this for a much higher clip playing a regular table. Here we 3-bet the ace-5, we c-bet, check, turn, and on the river, checking again, checking our whole range here, because our range very infrequently has a 5. Very rare that we have a 5 at all, and yeah, when this guy bets, I'm just gonna go for the min raise here. This is completely uh, exploitative. Just going for the min raise here out of the assumption that we never have any bluffs. Like I'm never raising here as a bluff. When when you're honest with yourself about never bluffing a spot, um, it becomes acceptable to min raise for value. Basically, according to theory, the bigger you bet, the more often you're allowed to bluff. And so logic would go the other way that the less you bluff, the smaller you can bet. Uh, Call it 3-bet here. Going to continue against the flop small bet, not folding our 2 overcards and ace high. Probably will be folding to a turn double barrel. Hmm. This size. This size, maybe not. I'm going to peel once again. This one's completely loose, and I could see a world where it's too loose, but we still beat the vast majority of his bluffing range. But if he bet even like a little bit bigger, I would just fold. Okay, now we're just letting it go. Small bet here. A lot of you are probably wondering where I've been. Certainly a valid concern. And yeah, man, like, dude, content is once you get out of that rhythm, it just gets so hard to get back on the rhythm. Like, I'm not gonna, like, dude, fucking content's a lot of work. Content's a lot of work, but I've got things sorted with an editor. Shorts should be returning soon. And yeah, I've just been playing a lot of poker. Things have finally calmed down a little bit, so we're back on the content grind, but yeah, took a shot at 5100 and a little bit of 100 200, which unfortunately did not go that well. Unfortunately, that did not go well. So we are going. It's going to be a while before we shot take those stakes again. But that's just the nature of the game. People never realize just how bad you can run. Starting off with small stab here after flop goes check. Just trying to pick up the pot here. I'm gonna follow this up with an overbet now. If we had a value hand, we would want to overbet this river. If we had basically any sort of overpair, we would want to pile big, so that's what we're doing with our bluffs. And like we discussed earlier, betting big allows us to bluff more often while remaining balanced. Um, for those of you that might be confused at that math or why that's the case, um, you can just search up pot odds and minimum defense frequency. Here, once this guy checks twice, I'm actually going to go for the value bet. Might seem thin for a lot of you guys, but we own ourselves against jacks there. That's lame. But yeah, when he just checks turn and checks river, his range is really, really, really capped. Like basically almost any hand that's better than ours should be going for a value bet himself. Jacks included, he should probably be block betting jacks there. And so when we bet, we can get paid off by like 8x, 7x, occasionally a sticky ace high. And yeah, those are enough combos. People are very weak when they check multiple times. A lot of you would probably snap check that one back. But yeah, like villains are generally just way too weak once they check twice. And yeah, occasionally you'll value own yourself against jacks, and it's gonna be unfortunate, but you know, it is what it is. It's the nature of the game. Yeah, gonna be playing our usual rough half-hour session. I was playing games where $200 was the big blind about a week or two ago. So, yeah. um, just checking this one with no equity. We want some sort of 10 or jack in our hand to bet. Ideally. Ideally. But once it checks down to the river, I'm just going to go for a one and done bet just to try to fold out ace high. This is all we're trying to do. It's just a travesty if we check and he checks back ace high. Like, that's just kind of the nut low. Yeah, and just even just here, just like a lot of recreational players that are very obvious if you know what to look for. Like all these short stacks, like this is probably a wreck, this is probably a wreck, this is probably a wreck, this is probably a wreck. Like all the short stacks are probably more likely than not recreational players. And I know I'm gonna get some comments from people being like, "Oh, like what? Like I short stack all the time and I'm a winning player. Like, are you calling me a recreational?" Uh, well, first of all, poker is a game of probabilities, and you don't have to know if someone's a wreck to say that they are probably a wreck. And unfortunately, if you're asking the question of like, oh, you know, I short stock all the time and I'm profitable, am I a wreck? Well, I have bad news for you. I probably are. And maybe you're not, but once again, game of probabilities, you probably are. Gonna go for the low frequency stab here. Very just like random airball hand, very low frequency. I did randomize and roll high. Don't do this all the time, but it's occasionally fun to get in there, just to try to get people to fold their ace high, king high when they check back. It's just one of those things where if you never stab your complete garbage, you're not stabbing enough, and if you always stab your complete garbage, you're stabbing too much. Um, yeah, just a little bit, little bit. And do I know that combo of garbage is a combo that I'm supposed to stab? No, like I have no idea. Like maybe that's a 0% stab in theory. But I do know that I'm occasionally supposed to stab garbage, and I'm just saying, okay, good enough. Like this hand is garbage. I rolled high. Yeah, occasionally is fine. Betting the 9 sometimes here, but checking back. And once it checks down to the river, once it goes check, 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 this is a slam dunk value bet. If we're auto checking this back after it checks down to the river, you're missing a lot of value here. Like this is a slam dunk fist pump value bet. It's not even close. Like you can argue the hand earlier with tens was like, you know, like maybe on the edge, but yeah, this is not on the edge. This is just slam dunk value bet. Player on the button is short stacked and also open 3x. Very, very good hint that they are indeed a recreational. And against a person that is probably a recreational, I'm just going to go for the more liberal 3-bet. Get called here and just checking everything over. This is not a good board for us. Oh, that is a good turn for us. Leading for small. Hmm. You know what? I'm gonna go for the block again here. We have a lot of King X. That could potentially. Oh my God, that guy just called a flush. Holy fuck. Yeah, that's like. Yeah, that's what I mean when this pool is very, very bad. Like, like you cannot just call a flush there, man. Like, yeah, that's just quite frankly absurd. I guess that's one we can check down, but bluffing it would be fine too. If our hand was even slightly worse, I would go for the bluff. But yeah, like over there, man, like holy shit, like the guy, like we blocked the river and he just calls the flush. Like that's insanity. That's insanity. Like what the fuck? What the fuck? Like whole like yeah, man, like dude, like just people do not like putting money in thin. I say thin as the guy has a what like a 9 high flush. Crazy, crazy. But anyways, to continue on my point, that block bet was basically just to try to fold out his low pocket pairs, stuff like 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, just low pocket pairs between the under the king and the queen. Yeah. But yes, I will be back on the content grind for a while because we took a shot at higher stakes and it did not go well. Washed up poker player loses bankroll, is forced to become content creator. This guy leads, and I'm not really sure what to make of this. I'm gonna call once, just because this line makes no sense at all. Um, yeah, yeah, like just a nonsense, nonsense lead, and whenever a line doesn't make sense, I'm always very, very, very suspicious. Raising this, sometimes calling, sometimes blind versus blind, have to be very liberal with the 3-betting. And just small c-bet on the king high board. Taking it down. Yeah, this pool is very, very, very soft. Or, fuck, I wouldn't say very, but it's like very soft for an online pool. Online's tough. Is this game still gonna be harder than your local 5-10 game at a casino? Yeah, absolutely. But is it soft for online? Yes, it is. Tons of mistakes across the board. Your biggest enemy at this stake is honestly not the players, it's the rake, which is why I don't recommend playing it, just because you're gonna get eaten alive by the rake. Like it's definitely you can definitely make money, but you're gonna be when you play a substantial sample, you're gonna see that over half of your profit goes to rake. Like you'll lose half of your profit to rake if you're good, and if you're not so good, you're going to just be losing or paying over 3/4 of your profit in rake. Um, but these games are good for content, so I'm glad that they are here. Calling here with the king, nothing to do. Here, if we had a spade, I would debate a double barrel. But without the spade, I'm actually just gonna check back. Look into Bluff River though, if we get it checked again to us. Folding this, and I'm just gonna fold the king here against double barrel. Like we could very easily be drawing dead, especially when villain overbets. Um, yeah. For those of you watching, I'd be very curious to know what what stakes you guys are playing. Like what level and what stakes. If you could just drop a comment with that information, that would actually be very helpful. Just calling here with the nut flush draw against this lead. This is another nonsense lead. Like, I don't understand what he would be potting here with. Just calling the turn again, but very suspicious of this. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Here I'm actually gonna go for the bluff, and you might think like Kevin, like you've got a pair, like why don't you just check back? Um, well, okay, so we get snapped off by two pair there. Well, you have to think about the kind of range that he might be leading there. Maybe some weak top pairs, maybe some middle pairs, maybe some gut shots. And on the Queen River, like a lot of those gut shots pair up. A lot of his King X is just weak top pair. And once you think about our range, calling a pot size bet on the flop, pot size bet on the turn, it's very, very, very hard for us to have a hand that is unpaired. Very, very, very difficult, especially on that run out where a lot of the straight draws complete, a lot of stuff makes two pair, a lot of queen high would pair up on the river. So it's very, very hard for us to have an unpaired hand after calling a pot size bet on the flop, pot size bet on the turn. And yes, that time he had two pair and he stamped us off, but he could very easily just have like a weak king that he folds, a queen that binked the river, or like a second pair holding that's just a little bit stronger than us. I forget the exact word, but yeah, like he could just have like a random middling pair that's slightly better than us, is what I'm trying to say. Now, does that mean you should just always bet your pairs? No, like obviously not. Like you generally should not be bluffing your pairs. Um, but in some situations where you have thinned your range a lot, yeah, like you really only do have a pair left to bluff. And that's the case. Like we've called a pot size flop bet, pot size turn bet. Like what hand are you doing that's unpaired? Like yeah, like maybe a couple flush drawn combos, but are not as many as you think. I'm gonna check back here. Double barreling is certainly fine, but because it's under the gun versus cutoff, we want to tighten up slightly. And it's just nice to have some top pair, top kicker in our check back range. Lets us have more value bets on the river when we check back the turn. Betting there on the turn would be totally fine though. General rule is the closer you get to early position, the more tight you have to be both just yeah, like with your value bets. Your value bets have to tighten up, is what I'm trying to say. Just folding this. Probably gonna be betting turn and river here. Starting with a small stab, just open ender, queen of diamonds. A lot of interaction with the board. Yeah, at the end of the day, like a lot of what you're doing is just looking at your hand and being like, okay, like do I have some sort of board interaction here? Low board here, mostly going to be checking. The 3 is good for villain. Villain will have a 3 much more often than us. And being out of position, we just have to check a lot and play quite defensively. But yeah, I've got a lot of footage saved up. Um, a lot of footage saved up from the last couple weeks, which is nice. Makes for a lot of shorts. I'm just calling the middle pair here. 2 weak, 2 weak to raise, but also too strong to fold. Checking back here, I'm gonna look to call river. I'm gonna peel this once with the king high. I don't know if this is good, but ooh, I probably should have donked that turn. But once turn goes check, check. Yeah, I'm just gonna try to lead here to get him off a chop. Like this is pretty mandatory. Against overbet. Okay. Interesting. Has a straight. Well, our plan was to call the river. Um, 7 of hearts there is really nice, just because a lot of his flushes that would check the turn would be flushes that have some showdown value in the form of a pair, and that would be the 7 of hearts. So a lot of removal to the flush part of his range, which is what we want. Queen 10 suited, just standard call. Yeah, just going to be calling flop and turn and evaluating river. On a lot of runouts, we have to put more money in. This is not one of them. This one, I think we can just comfortably fold if we face not the barrel. Yeah, just gonna comfortably fold this one. Comfortably folding. Yeah, just a bajillion flush combos that we could be drawing dead to. Ugh. Yeah, at stakes like these, you don't. If you're playing stakes like these or even lower, and you find yourself doing, if you're playing stakes like these and you find yourself doing a lot of thinking, like you feel yourself straining your brain trying to come up with ideas or counters or like strategies or whatever. The bad news I have for you is that you're probably thinking about the wrong things. Probably just thinking about the wrong things. So this guy's representing a 9 when he leads here. Um, do I believe him? So far, no. So far, no. Especially no, not now once he checks the turn. No sense in value betting though, so I'm just gonna check back. And maybe bluff catch if he bets. I'm really, really suspicious of this. And yeah, I'm probably just gonna put it in, if I'm being honest. Maybe he has a 9. I could be. We'll find out. Okay, just as a random ace. Cool. Yeah, like if he's leading a6 off on the flop there, then he's also leading a bunch of other garbage that could bluff the river. So very happy with my call. But yes, to retouch my earlier point, if you're playing stakes like these or lower and you find yourself just like straining your brain trying to think of things, trying to think of strategies, trying to think of counters, the bad news I have for you is that you're probably thinking about the wrong things. Um, because when you get to like really high stakes, sometimes you have to think about like, oh, like I'm doing this, so he's gonna be doing this, and like I have to do this in response to his that. And that back and forth can be a thing at higher stakes, but this is not higher stakes. Like it's no one's doing that here. Like anyone who is able to do that is long gone from these stakes. So you're just left with people who don't have that second order thinking. You're just left with people who are just playing their whatever strategy, and yeah, like against that, you don't have to think too hard. You're basically just like, oh, like like is this a hard bluff? Yes, it is. That means he's probably not finding it. Like that's really all you have to think about. Going to go for a small bet here with our 9 high. Ace is chopping the board. Just trying to fold out his queen high, jack high, 10 high, or whatever high card. Not trying to fold out a pair, expecting to always get called when he has a pair, but we bet very small, and he doesn't have to fold very often for that to be profitable. Yeah, I'm gonna try to get back on the schedule of releasing these once a week. Content creation is fucking hard. It really is. Like if you think like I used to think that content creators just like sat on their ass and did nothing, but then I tried it, and like I'll be honest, I didn't even try that hard. Like I was putting out a short like once a day. Like that's not that much. But even then I was like, fuck, like this is so much. Like this is so much work. It's one of those things where you think it's easy until you do it yourself and you're just like, fuck me in the ass. I hope I didn't say bad words to get banned by YouTube. That'd be very unfortunate. Okay, probably just going to sit out next big blind. We are coming up to half an hour. So yeah, so just gonna cut it off here. Thanks for tuning in once again, and as long as I can stick to this routine, I will see you guys next week.